The Psychedelic Spotlight team attends Soul Psychedelphia in Philadelphia. The Microdosing Collective convenes its inaugural session in Los Angeles. We visit with May Fakhiriyazdi, Director of Field Trip Health's Ketamine Clinic in Santa Monica, and Dominique Lopez and the healing power of Reiki. Welcome in, fam. I'm Andrea Monier, and this is Spotlight in Focus. Soul Psychedelphia is a community education event that supports the building of relationships through the exchange of ideas around plant medicine.
Hi, welcome to Soul Psychedelphia. This is a celebration of the psychedelic revival in the Philadelphia region and all over the country. Come on in. Our main sponsors of the event today is Sound Mind Institute. Sound Mind Institute is a psychedelic therapy healing center, and they've actually just this week been awarded one of the first 3 licenses or accreditations in Oregon for psilocybin therapy training. So that's a huge accomplishment, and they're expanding their reach, and we're so excited to have them here today.
Talk to me a little bit, Taylor, about Sound Mind, if you would.
Yeah, so Sound Mind is a ketamine-assisted therapy clinic and a training institute in West Philly. It's like 46 in Spruce. And so they do, I actually just finished up their 6-month psychedelic-assisted therapy training program.
Okay.
And they also just got approved to do psilocybin training via the Oregon model. So kind of doing both, as well as partnering with the community for outreach and education.
How important is psychedelic assisted healing in terms of being able to reach people within marginalized communities who have been left behind by society, who have been, left to basically be addicted to opioids, SSRIs? I mean, how important is it to bring psychedelic assisted healing into these communities?
It is so important. And I think that in these marginalized communities, they're the highest users of the healthcare system. They have the highest rates of, adverse childhood events, of mental illnesses, of addiction. And so the exact indications that we're seeing psychedelics being used for are in the highest rates in these communities. And so I think in terms of, the way that psychedelics being rolled out, it needs to definitely be rolled out in a way that is accessible from a price point wise, but also in a trauma-informed kind of lens, just knowing that a lot of these communities have been victims of all kinds of trauma from the research institutions themselves. So it's, and then to that point, we definitely need therapists of all different backgrounds, specific training and ongoing education for practitioners to learn how to kind of partner with people of all different backgrounds and to really ultimately, with anyone, but especially for these really vulnerable communities that have kind of been shoved off by society, to help them feel really safe and secure to unpack, just all that's accumulated.
We're here today with Decriminalize Philly and Balanced Veterans Network. Those are our 2 beneficiaries for the event. All the ticket sales are going to go to 2 of these organizations, both very notable in the industry, both doing very important work to be able to increase access and equitability in psychedelic medicine. Balanced Veterans obviously focus on veterans' health and opening up access for alternative treatments for veterans.
So Ron, tell me a little bit about some of the work that you do with Balanced Veterans.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Balanced Veterans is a 501c3 nonprofit and we connect veterans and their families to all alternative therapies. And so we do that through various initiatives, and so some of that is through movement, introduction to yoga, breathing, meditation, different modalities that we can have at our disposal really at any time. And then we also help connect to some of the plant modalities like cannabis and psychedelics. And so to provide education, and then most importantly, we've got a peer-to-peer support community. So folks can plug in right away, ask questions, and really kind of work through their transition post-service with some other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And post-service, I mean, having that community and that support. Talk to me a little bit about how important that is.
It's vital. I did not have that, unfortunately, with my transition, and I had a really difficult transition. Was on a bunch of pharmaceuticals and was really struggling to kind of find that answer, what was next, like where do I go from here? And luckily I was able to be introduced to some of these modalities. But once I was able to dive into my healing journey, it was like, we need to come back, extend the hand, and help our brothers and sisters have that place, have that community to be able to have some of these conversations. This isn't stuff that we can necessarily talk about freely with the VA, and a lot of folks are under VA care, and so having this private space to be able to have those conversations, explore a little bit about what might help you, and it's been vital. It's been really important for me and our community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And talk to me a little bit about, if you will, share, your experience, your service, which, by the way, thank you so much, for your commitment, your sacrifices. But talk to us a little bit about, your experience and how you came back, the person you were when you came back, and maybe the struggles that you experienced. Because I think it's important, when we're talking about trying to remove the stigma that's tied to psychedelic and psychedelic-assisted healing, I think it's important for people to know where people are coming from in their journey. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am so incredibly grateful for psychedelics and for sacred plant medicine. I believe that without that, I would not even have the language to understand what was going on or what was happening in my transition. And so, I think back to 5-6 years ago, not even being able to grasp or put words or even an understanding around how I felt. I joined the military at 17, and so all of the conditioning that happens in your childhood and the systems that you're in, and then to go right into the military and from 17 to 24 have that shape what it was to be a man or how to exist in society. For me, it was not super helpful. It led me to become a person that I was not really. And so to be fighting against yourself and your authenticity regularly, it creates this inner turmoil. And I was really, really struggling and tried to take my life. And I realized that through really self-reflect, because it's all on us. No one could save me. No one could be there for me to help me find what was next. But, I was able to see some glimpse of light, and luckily find some of these modalities to be able to get down to some of the root causes. I mean, that's all these tools do. Right. It's not a magic fix. It's not going to make everything better. It's going to give you some space to be able to genuinely find yourself. Right. And I knew that, as soon as I was able to feel that glimpse of self-love and really what I needed and desired, and it was completely opposite from the military culture and what you're kind of taught. It was very uncomfortable and conflicting, but I was able to start to find myself, and it's a journey. It's taken a lot of time.
Let's ask these questions of what's the right dose to start at? What's the best compound to start with? When should we even start administering it? Day 1, week 1, year 1, when?
So we're here, Colette. This is Soul Psychedelphia. I know a lot of work you've put in here over the last several weeks to bring this wonderful event together. So I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done to bring this event together. But what is it like to be here on the day, finally?
It's just so amazing to be here, and just big thanks to all of you too, and just so many hands that have gone into this. And this is really almost the essence of why we're doing this work, is that we believe in doing this work in community and really having community support and engagement. So it's almost like this beautiful example of why we're really passionate about decriminalization, to be able to meet here together and be in community. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to talk a little bit about the element of community and how important that is. I think with so much happening here in the psychedelic sector, everyone always talks about all the clinical trials that are happening with all the different companies, but I think what gets lost in a lot of that is how is psychedelic healing going to make its way into the communities, particularly communities that are oftentimes forgotten about and left behind.
Yeah.
And that's why I think events like this are so important, because you're starting the conversation here within the community. So talk to me a little bit about what the element of community means to you and what you hope to accomplish through your work with Decriminalize Nature Philadelphia.
Well, you know, growing up in Philadelphia and, you know, still being here, still very much being part of the community here, it's you know, as I've shared before, you know, Philadelphia is really struggling with a lot of aspects of poverty, entrenched violent crime. You know, something like, you know, 20% of the individuals that live in the city make less than $13,000 a year. And that just affects all of the aspects of receiving access to mental health care, general health care. And you know, on top of that, we have a mostly black city. And, you know, for us working with these tools on a community level, it's really, you know, we also have so many people that are working with these tools already.
Right.
And so, you know, for us as an organization, it's wanting to be able to make safe space, especially for people of color in the community, to be able to use these tools.
Right.
And to, you know, bring it into the light. And I think that's part of the issue in the psychedelic space right now, is that without really you know, navigating these power dynamics and having things really be in a community context. You know, these are ancestral tools that were used in community, that this is really the model that we're wanting to access and to support for really people's safety, for having really supportive processes,
right.
and also to be able to keep people, you know, out of prison and not be like continuing the prison industrial complex as, you know, entheogenic tools are becoming more and more mainstream. So helping protect our citizens here in the city too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's like we've recognized that the system is broken. It needs to be fixed. I think this is a wonderful approach. We talked about how important community is. I want to also talk about the element of education and how important that is, because very much this event is centered around education and starting to educate folks about psychedelic-assisted healing. And it's still a concept that I think is very foreign to a lot of people out there. They hear psychedelics and, you know, I don't think they understand, you know, exactly what psychedelic-assisted healing is. So talk to me a little bit about the work you're also doing on the educational front and how that's helping to create the framework that's going to be necessary to incorporate psychedelic-assisted healing into communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, really, even right now, our conversations with City Council that we're starting to have, you know, we're educating them about what these tools even are. So many people do not really understand what they are. There's also a lot of stigma around these tools, kind of cross-culturally, but especially in the Black community. So like, we actually have a lot of members that are supportive of decrim, and many of them I've just kind of seen starting to come into today, but like having those conversations with Black community members about what these tools are and trying to, you know, remove the stigma, but also simultaneously really empower people with education around, you know, what it looks like to be able to use these tools with reducing risk, having support, starting small, you know, having those resources for being able to be supported. And this is also a simultaneous process for us, that we are simultaneously, as we grow, are trying to capacitate other aspects of us as an organization to be able to support people in better ways. For how to be able to use these tools in safer ways. And I think that, again, it comes back to like bringing them out of, you know, I'm thinking about the word in Spanish, like the darkness, you know, the oscuridad, like to bring them out into the light, so that way we're being able to really share them in a good way. But you know, having the conversation and sharing that information in a supportive way.
Absolutely.
For information on other events like Soul Psychedelphia, visit thesportgroup.com.
The Microdosing Collective is a nonprofit dedicated to educating on the benefits of legalizing the microdosing of psychedelics for optimizing human wellness.
Microdosing has made a massive impact on my mental health, and that's everything from creativity to flow to focus. It cannot be overstated how important this practice has been to my overall wellness routine. So the Microdosing Collective was started really inspired by a few different things. One was our personal stories. The board members, myself, Paul Austin, Josh Capel, came together and started talking about, you know, our profound experiences with microdosing, how important they've been to hundreds of people around us. And after we started looking into the way that policy is being formed all across the United States and Canada, we started to become increasingly aware that there is no policy that's being shaped specifically around microdosing, which is subperceptual use of psychedelics as wellness supplement. And the way that we're making policy in most of the US and Canada is around macrodosing at service centers. And while that's amazing and there's so much incredible progress, and we're super supportive of everything that's going on with all the clinical trials and everything that's being studied and legalized for consciousness altering doses at these facilities, it leaves out an entire market of people that are looking to use microdosing, psilocybin, or other psychedelics for healing and human optimization. And we started this initiative for one very specific reason, and that's to help create a legal pathway for microdosing to be legalized, for people to have access to these supplements in an above ground taxable market where they're not having to get unsafe supplements from sketchy messaging apps. That's how most of the substances are being shipped right now. Most of the people that purchase psilocybin, microdosing, and other microdosing psychedelics are purchasing them from a guy who knows a guy on secret messaging apps. And we would never accept that from our supplements. We would never accept that from the food we eat. Yet we're having this, dangerous situation pop up because people are, engaging with substances that they don't know where they're from. And as, a lot of us believe, the problem with drugs mostly comes from the fact that they are illegal. And actually pulling these substances above ground and creating a pathway for people to have safe, vetted access to them is a win-win for policymakers, for consumers, for the brands that are creating these supplements. And we're really excited to bring it to life so that, the purpose of tonight was our launch event. We did a launch event at Petit Hermitage in West Hollywood, and we brought together some of the most impactful people in psychedelics in Southern California to come together, share about this initiative, bring on founding company members, bring on individuals, and really make this a movement by the people, have everyone come in and collectively, contribute their gifts to bring this to life and get people engaged in public policy in a way that feels exciting and actionable. So, we had an amazing night. It's midnight. We have been, hanging and talking, and everyone has been really inspired by the conversation around the power of microdosing and the potential for us to actually have a legal over-the-counter market for these products that are life-changing.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the team for having us. This is such a cool space, and people are here from all over the world. We've had a few people fly in from Canada, from all over the country to come and talk about psychedelic public policy tonight. We're so excited about launching this initiative. Look at the people up here. Thank you. We're going to have a conversation around microdosing, and then we're going to open it up to questions. And we're so excited to share this concept with you guys. And this has been something that's really close to our hearts. So I will be brief with kind of introducing it, and we'll get into a little bit more of the details and science and the actual legal policy, which Josh will speak to much more eloquently than I can. And just to kick it off, if you could just by a show of hands, who up here is microdose?
So when it comes to the Microdosing Collective and why we did tonight's event, it's really to bring together a community of people who want to develop pioneering regulatory policy around microdosing as a supplement. So this isn't just something that they have to get underground or from unsavory providers, but that this is something that can be done safely, effectively, through a regulatory policy. And so we hosted tonight's event as a launch event, as a way to activate and catalyze a community of people who share this common mission, this common value around the necessity to make microdosing psychedelics, microdosing plant medicine as accessible as possible. And so it was really beautiful to see how the entire evening came together, from the venue with the Petit Hermitage to the different panelists that we had having a conversation about microdosing and how do we push this movement forward, to the many sort of sidebar conversations that have sparked as a result of this. And the hope really is that in states like Colorado and California and New York and even Texas and Florida, states that are considering policy that's specific to psychedelics, that we can start to weave in something that is particular to microdosing, because the fact is that the vast majority of people who are going to work with psychedelics in this cultural context, when these states legalize psychedelics, they're going to want to do it in a microdosing fashion. They're not necessarily going to want to have a one-on-one coach and facilitator there every single time, maybe for the first one, but not every single time. And so we need to develop policy, we need to develop a framework where this can become almost like an over-the-counter supplement, if you will. And I know a lot of people are concerned about what does it look like if these are just widely available and accessible. And for us at the Microdosing Collective, and also for me at Third Wave and what we've done in the microdosing space, it really comes down to education. Education, education, education. We just need to inform, we need to provide education, we need to make sure that people have trustworthy, research-backed, quality knowledge that they can utilize to make this decision, because people want to heal themselves, people want to use this medicine in an intentional and responsible way. And so the more context that we can provide for that, the more support that we can provide for that, then the more likely it is that we can develop legal policy that will ensure that these medicines can become integrated into the cultural mainstream.
What I'm thankful for is I knew innately that it should be something that should call to me.
Ultimately, I got called to working with psilocybin. It changed my life in terms of offering me sleep and respite.
And I've just seen some really great improvements from it.
Your outlook in your day just is a little bit brighter and a little bit lighter.
I started investigating it actually for my patients. I'm a doctor in the mental health space.
I hope more and more people find their way to be willing to do this.
That's the bridge and the gift of microdosing.
I think it's important to be engaged and not afraid.
And I know scores of people who have been positively impacted by microdosing.
Microdosing grounded me, or helped ground me.
When I microdose on mushrooms, it helps me with my creativity.
I started understanding the respect you need to have for these things.
It can definitely help give you energy, focus, creativity.
I started to really connect and feel into what mattered to me. And these were questions that I had never asked in my entire life up until this point.
My mood is better, my energy level's higher.
It's truly just made my life happier.
Microdosing has made a massive impact on my mental health. And that's everything from creativity to flow to focus. It cannot be overstated how important this practice has been to my overall wellness routine.
May Fakhiriyazdi is the director of Field Trip Health's Ketamine Clinic in Santa Monica, where they provide safe and legal ketamine-assisted therapy for those struggling with treatment-resistant mental health conditions.
Hi, my name is May Fakhiriyazdi. I'm the nurse practitioner and clinic manager here at Field Trip Los Angeles, and I'm going to give you a tour of the space. So when you first come into the clinic, you'll notice that we have a beautiful, really open lobby space. Our designers spent a lot of time very intentionally curating all of our spaces to make clients feel very comfortable in the setting. So the first person you'll typically see when you come into the space is our medical office administrator. So we believe that the journey really starts from the moment that you come into the door. So making sure that you're greeted with warmth and you feel really welcome is when that healing process begins. On this side of the clinic, we have a couple of treatment rooms. And we like to give our clients the opportunity to choose which room fits them best, which room they gravitate towards. So this is an example of one of our treatment rooms. This room in particular doesn't have any windows, which some clients will prefer. So ketamine can make you very light sensitive. So some people will choose to opt for this room. As you'll see in all of the rooms, they all look pretty similar with ambient lighting, these zero gravity chairs, as well as speakers in all of the rooms. So this is an example of another one of our treatment rooms that does have windows. So again, it's really up to the client's preference. Some clients actually prefer to have some light coming in so that it feels a little bit more open, but we do have blackout curtains in the room as well, so it will black out the room but still let a little bit of light in. And then as you can see, the room again is curated very similarly with the zero gravity chairs, the speakers, and then we do have soundproof headphones that all of the clients will wear during the course of their journey as well. So this is my favorite room. This is our recovery space, which we also call the cloud room. So typically we allow for our clients to have about 30 minutes to an hour of recovery time after the journey. Some people will opt to stay in the room, but others like to use this space. So it's just a very comfortable, cozy space for them to hang out in. We also offer watercolors and colored pencils, so it's really helpful for people to kind of integrate the journey immediately afterwards by drawing kind of what they felt and what they saw. And so they're free to do so in this space. So this is our nursing station. So our clinics are always manned with at least one nurse practitioner, if not multiple, when clients are in the clinic. So our nurse practitioners will always be seated at this desk. They use this monitor to monitor clients in the room. So we do have cameras in the rooms so that we can monitor clients throughout the journey. And we're also able to monitor their vitals. So things like blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen levels. And so this is where the nurse practitioner will do that. They also have the purview of the entire clinic, so they're able to kind of manage the clinic throughout the day. So all of our clients are fasting for a couple of hours before their journey, and then certainly after their journey, they're very hungry. So we have a fully equipped kitchen. We provide them snacks. We try to provide really healthy snacks, gluten-free, dairy-free options for them, as well as water, electrolyte supplements, and things like that. So on this side of the clinic, we have rooms that are a little bit larger. This room we kind of refer to as a suite because it does have the zero gravity chair as well as a couch. So typically, at least for the first appointment, we ask that our clients sit upright in the chair so that we can monitor their breathing. After that, we may give them the option to lay down on the couch if they prefer. So they have that option in this room. You'll see as well that we have the ambient lighting set up in the rooms. We can pull the blackout curtains, and most of our rooms have salt lamps as well. So it's a very, very curated experience. And then this room over here is probably one of our most used rooms. This room we call the ocean room because of the blue wall and the blue carpeting. But again, ambient lighting. The music that we use in the clinic is very specifically curated as well. So we use a program called Wave Paths, and the clients are able to listen to that music in their headphones, but it's also playing throughout the speaker so that the therapist in the room is following along with the same music throughout the journey. This is our group room. So this room was curated to be able to hold 4 to 5 people for group ketamine sessions as well as group therapy. We sometimes use it for that purpose. We sometimes use it for trainings as well. So we'll do staff trainings, we'll do trainings for outside therapists as well to learn about ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, and this is the room that we utilize. It can also be used as an integration space, but as you can see, it's just a really comfortable spa-like room kind of fitting into the whole setting of the clinic.
Tell us, in your thoughts, where we're at in America with regard to ketamine-assisted therapy.
You know, it's a good question. I often feel like we're in a great place. Like everyone's understanding that this is a great medicine to be using and that it's aiding and healing the masses. But then I kind of step out of my bubble And I see that a lot of people just aren't there yet. I think society is definitely warming up. You know, some people have heard there's a psychedelic renaissance happening, and I believe in that. I think we're on the forefront of a new wave of medicine. And people are starting to warm up, but I think there's still a lot of stigma around ketamine, around psychedelics in general. But I think we're doing better. You know, mental health is becoming more of a fundamental issue that we're concerning ourselves with in medicine and healthcare and our personal lives. So I have hope for the future, but I do think, you know, sometimes when you're in the world of psychedelics, when you're working in this field 8-9 hours a day, you forget that it is still a small bubble, but it's growing.
Tell me about your role here as the director of the Santa Monica Field Trip Health Clinic.
Yeah, so I run the Los Angeles clinic here in Santa Monica. I'm also the lead nurse practitioner. So my role is twofold. I manage the clinic and make sure that the day-to-day operations here are going smoothly, that clients are happy, that the staff is happy. Something that's really important to me and in Field Trip in general is our company culture. You know, we're treating individuals with severe depression, very complex trauma, PTSD, and so it's important that the staff themselves are in a good place mentally and emotionally, and that we work as a team. So that's a big part of my role, is making sure that the team here in Santa Monica are all on the same page and they all feel supported. Aside from that is my role as the nurse practitioner. So we have 3 nurse practitioners here in Santa Monica. I'm kind of the lead nurse practitioner in some ways, and so I see almost, I would say 80% of the clients that come through the clinic. So my role is to make sure that clients are medically cleared to receive ketamine, that they can handle receiving ketamine from a medical standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and then also to prescribe and administer the ketamine and monitor clients throughout their journey.
Let's talk about some of the impediments that a potential candidate for ketamine therapy could face in getting the treatment that they think they're interested in. Mm-hmm. What are contraindications to your knowledge?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So there's medical contraindications, there are psychiatric contraindications. Some of the big things that we look at from a medical standpoint is cardiovascular history. So can your heart handle the effects of ketamine? Typically, if you can handle a rigorous workout, if you can handle walking up a steep hill or a couple flights of stairs, you can handle ketamine. But those are the things that we look at. So uncontrolled blood pressure, history of myocardial infarction, a heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, those are all things that we're looking at. Some are absolute contraindications, others we can kind of work with, but other things that we look at is pregnancy is an absolute contraindication, breastfeeding. For right now, although there has been research that shows that potentially we can use ketamine in breastfeeding individuals, but for now we're kind of erring on the side of caution. And then other things we look at are sleep apnea, severe sleep apnea, although we can work with those individuals as well. So kind of up to the discretion of the medical provider. And then from a psychiatric perspective, any history of mania, psychosis, schizophrenia, some personality disorders, although that can kind of be up to the discretion of the therapist, and things like that. So we're very flexible. We try to see as many as we possibly can, help as many individuals as we possibly can, but definitely want to be very safe. In general, ketamine is a very, very safe medicine to use, so long as we've done the proper screening ahead of time.
Do clients who come in seeking treatment need to have a referral from a psychologist or psychiatrist before they arrive at your clinic? So in Field Trip Los Angeles and in the US clinics, you don't need a referral. In some of our Canadian clinics, they do need a referral, but here we actually don't take referrals. I mean, we'll definitely take a client if a psychologist or a psychiatrist has referred them, but it's not necessary. We will do our own screening. So all of our clinics that come through, all of our clients that come through our program, they will do a psychiatric consultation with one of our psych mental
mental health nurse practitioners or one of our psychiatrists, and then that individual will determine if the client is approved or deferred for the program. And then from there, once the client comes into the clinic, the nurse practitioner will do the medical evaluation to determine if they're approved or deferred. So we do all of that in-house.
You are a nurse practitioner.
Yes.
And you were working as a nurse practitioner prior to coming on to Field Trip.
Actually, this was my first role as a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of embarked into the world of a nurse practitioner and right out the gate went right into psychedelics. So
tell me about that path, coming from your training into integrating psychedelics into the practice of being a nurse practitioner.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not traditional, but I've never been super traditional in my practice of medicine. So even before I was a nurse practitioner, I was a registered nurse. I'm also a holistic health coach. So I've always kind of practiced medicine and moved in my professional life in a very spiritual and holistic way. I didn't quite know that would lead me to Field Trip, to working in psychedelics and psychedelic medicine, but it did, and I'm very, very grateful that it did. It was kind of a serendipitous, a series of circumstances that led me to end up at Field Trip, but I'm very fortunate to be here, and I think it's actually really nice to start my career here in psychedelics and start to pave this path for myself, for a society, and be a part of that revolution that's happening, a part of that psychedelic renaissance from the very beginning.
So what is it about psychedelics that one can envision a healthier society through that lens? What are we talking about when we're talking about psychedelic medicine, whether it's ketamine or any other kind of plant medicine or psychedelic? What's at the core of this renaissance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at the core of this renaissance, to quote Ram Dass, is we're all just finding our way back home. We're all just walking ourselves back home. I get emotional talking about it because I feel super, super passionate about the magic, really, of psychedelics. And I think, through the power of psychedelics, and actually to quote one of our therapists here at Field Trip and a dear friend of mine, Dr. Mike Dow, he talks about ketamine and psychedelics as being a root cause treatment. So, historically in traditional medicine, when we've looked at mental health, when we've wanted to treat depression, anxiety, PTSD, we've typically looked at traditional medications like SSRIs and SNRIs. And those medications, while they help many people, they don't get to the root cause of why somebody has developed depression or PTSD or has complex trauma. It kind of just puts a Band-Aid on the issue. What psychedelics are doing is they're getting down to the bottom of it. What ketamine is doing, it's allowing you to dissociate. It's allowing for your ego to turn off and for your subconscious to come to the surface. And while that might not always be an easy or pretty process, it's necessary for healing. And that's what psychedelics afford, is healing for the world, really. And it's giving us the opportunity to connect, reconnect again. I think a lot of times when individuals are suffering with depression, anxiety, whatever mental health issues they're dealing with, they become isolated, right? They feel disconnected from the world, from their loved ones, from themselves. And psychedelics give them an opportunity to reconnect to themselves, to a higher purpose, to society, to the environment. And I think overall, if we can all do that a little bit more, if the pandemic has shown us anything, it's that we need that connection. As humans, we need a tribe, we need a community to thrive. So I think that's where the root of psychedelics come into play, and that's why that renaissance is happening now.
To learn more about ketamine-assisted therapy, visit fieldtriphealth.com.
Maria Dominique Lopez is an energy healer and spiritual life coach, empowering individuals to heal their trauma through energy medicine.
Hello, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. My name is Maria, and I am the founder, CEO of ascending arts. My Reiki practice, my life practice, is something that I started in the fall of 2019, and I have helped other self-healers, people heal themselves all around the world. At its basest form, Reiki is a Japanese shamanic practice that is born, it's thousands of years old, born from the Shinto and some Buddhist practices. But the most modern version of what we know today as Reiki was actually only born in about between 1920 and 1922. So just a little idea for you about decolonization and Reiki and how the colonization and westernization of Reiki has met itself or have met each other, is that every single indigenous culture on this planet at one time or another has had some sort of hands-on energetic healing practice. So many of those have been lost to colonization. There are so many that we don't even have the names for anymore because of colonization. Reiki is one that has managed to survive because it was almost rebranded, let's say, by Master Mikao Usui in the early 1920s. And he was able to take practices from shamanic indigenous cultures there in Japan and kind of marry them with some of the Buddhist dogma and Shinto texts and things like that were around in the day, along with the westernized, the growing westernization of Japanese culture and their ideas of what good humanity was. And he kind of conglomerated into what we now know as Reiki. But that's just a little bit of the history, because I think it's really important for people to understand that this practice that we practice now in Western healing tradition is not truly Reiki. I mean, it is, but it also isn't.
It's good to have that delineation so you understand the roots and then how we've, like you said, westernized it and the differentiation, and also making notice of the other indigenous cultures that also have similar practices and how that's been lost because of imperialism and colonialism.
But then I also want to touch on like what it actually is. And so what that is, it's a shamanic indigenous practice. Practitioner places hands on the recipient and funnels life force energy, or chi, or ki, Reiki, right, into the recipient to promote their energetic and physical healing. It's important to know that a lot of scientific studies have been done on Reiki, and if you want to know more about those, you can always go visit reiki.org, and they list all of the scientific studies that have been done. But they've done them on humans, but they've also done them on animals like lab rats and mice and other animals. And what they've found is that Reiki is proven to decrease cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone in the body. It decreases inflammation, which can help decrease pain levels in patients who are recovering from surgery, or patients who are going through birthing processes, things like that. It increases the development of the myelin lining on the nerve endings in your myelin sheath. And so that increases muscle memory. That's what creates muscle memory and stores memory in our autonomic nervous system. So it can re-regulate the nervous system, helping it heal from trauma. There are so many physical and psychological benefits to Reiki that have been proven in studies. And people are like, but how is that possible, right? And the way that I talk about it is from a scientific standpoint. I really like people to understand the science, because I myself am like a little bit nerdy scientific, but also I have a hard time with faith sometimes and believing the woo of it all. So broad strokes of quantum mechanics here, you and me and this table and the moon and everything in existence, literally oxygen, everything, is at the quantum level made up of the same matter, just different conglomerations of the same matter, but everything is quantumly connected, same exact kind of matter. It's like that aspen forest in Utah, right? It looks like 50,000 trees, but it's actually one of the largest, or I think it is the largest organism on Earth. It's one tree united by a root system that looks like 100 acres worth of trees. That's what existence is like. So Reiki at its simplest form is just me funneling through our root system nutrients into you. I'm not giving you my energy. It doesn't hurt me to do this. In fact, I receive Reiki when I give you Reiki. So it's just, I'm like a meat straw through which the energy is flowing. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if you think about when you like take a magnifying glass, right? And you're like burning a hole on the sidewalk, right? The sun is Reiki I'm the magnifying glass and you're the sidewalk. I'm just directing it to you.
Like a conduit.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is that if quantum matter is inside you and all around you, and I'm directing more into you, it's really just filling you up with existence. And how can that not promote balance and healing, right?
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a great explanation. And it seems that Reiki is something, like you said, that has been westernized, but when you honor what it actually is, of the totality of all things, and being able to be a channel and tapping in with your natural gifts and being able to, with your skill set, being able to share that and help heal people, which is really amazing.
Yeah, and I think part of the important part of decolonizing Reiki is really inviting people to not only honor its indigenous roots in Japan, but also to bring the spirituality back into it, to really understand that that spirituality and that quantum physics can't really be separated. The more we study quantum physics, which by the way is now the most proven science on earth, which means that there have been more studies to the same conclusive evidence than biology or chemistry or physics, right? So the more that we study quantum physics, the more we realize that there is something.
Exactly. Right? And so it's kind of what's really interesting with quantum physics is actually showing the science behind spirituality.
Totally. Oh my gosh, yes.
Behind the energy of the unseen.
Yeah.
Because what is it, 99.9% is energy.
Yeah.
There's like hardly anything is matter. It's tiny, tiny, tiny percentage.
Totally.
It's amazing.
Totally.
And I like that you know the science behind it and you're aware of the studies as well, because I think when people come to Reiki, they think it's another woo-woo thing, and there's a lot of that out there right now.
Totally.
But at the end of the day, if you actually look at a lot of these studies and you look at the results of some of your clients, you can see that there's actually palpable, noticeable differences in healing.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
happens.
absolutely. I have a program specifically designed to help people heal their trauma, and remove it from the nervous system where it's stored in the autonomic nervous system. And if you've ever read Dr. van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, right?
Yeah.
Then you would know, right, that our brains can process trauma really quickly and let them go, but our autonomic nervous system holds onto it for a very, very
And it's
long
stuck
time.
in the fascia
Yeah,
of the body.
exactly.
Yeah. And it creates disease in the body.
Yes, amen. And so I've had clients who come to me who have like chronic migraines, and they work with me for 3 months and they're gone. I have clients who, after the first month of working with me, have already lost 10 pounds. You know, those kinds of things, because their body starts releasing whatever it's holding on to with that dis-ease, and then the body starts to balance itself again. They're sleeping better. Their digestion improves. You know, all of these other things while they're beginning to release the trauma as well, that affects their relationships, that affects their work life, that affects their ability to connect in their wider world, all of those things.
You can't really operate as your authentic self when your nervous system is always in survival mode, which is fear-based. And so we have to find ways to clear those things. And I think it's great that now this is becoming more of a mainstream dialogue, and things like energy work are now being studied and also included in more of the mainstream healing. Before it was very, remote and woo-woo.
Yeah.
So it's great that we're able to have people like you helping other people, which we need right now. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what it takes to become a practitioner, what the steps are, how you became a Reiki practitioner, and like the levels?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting because I'm very much in the camp that believes in the decolonization of Reiki and the de-Westernization of Reiki. Okay. And yet I went through a very colonized and Westernized process to become a Reiki master. And it was only after I became a Reiki master that I began to learn about the colonization and Westernization of Reiki, and how damaging that is to the future of Reiki as a practice. So you can get certified online. You can go to a weekend retreat at the Marriott for $500 and get certified as a Reiki master. There are a lot of ways to become certified, but there are not a lot of ways to actually become attuned to the energy. I mean, mine was accidental. Like I said, I was in the middle of an MDMA journey, meditating for 6 hours, right? Like that was an accident. I never intended to.
Or divinely orchestrated.
Or divinely orchestrated, yes. But I have noticed that clients that I've been working with for a very long time, they begin to attune themselves energetically because they begin to live in a way that is in alignment with the energy of Reiki, and I teach them the Reiki principles, and I allow them to live those out in their lives and encourage them to do so. I teach them to meditate, I teach them to be able to move energy through their bodies, and so eventually they attune themselves. And then the certification process is really just a formality of Western gatekeeping. So I have a program that I'm going to be releasing this fall called Ascension 101, and it is a year-long Reiki Master certification in which I will teach you everything you need to know to go from a normal person, like I was, just a Joe Schmo, all the way through my entire process of how I became a Reiki Master. You will learn how to meditate. So if you've never meditated before in your life, fine, you'll learn. You will learn how to do heart coherence practices. You're going to learn how to perform Tantra, practice Tantra, both with yourself or with partners. That it's really just a way to move energy through the body, and that's why. You'll learn about ancestral veneration, how to do shadow work, all of these other things that really will lead you to becoming the kind of person who can be attuned energetically to these very fine feelings in the energetic field around you. And then once you can feel the energy flowing from you, I will certify you. It's very easy. So I have clients of mine who are already ready to be certified. They skipped the first 4 or 5 months of my program of Ascension 101, and they've already just went straight to their Reiki 1 certification. But I don't certify you until you can feel the energy coming from your hands.
To learn more about Maria's Reiki practice, visit @AscendingArts.
I'm grateful for the Soul Psychedelphia community and their grassroots movement around community building and educating in our space.
And I'm grateful to the Microdosing Collective. It's important to have a framework in place, something that we can reference consistently when talking about the legalization of microdosing psychedelics.
And I'm really grateful for May Fakhiriyazdi, the director of Field Trip Health's Ketamine Clinic in Santa Monica, and her entire team that allowed us to come there and speak to them about these important ketamine treatments.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to Dominique Lopez for allowing us to look into her energy medicine practice. She's really helping a lot of people, and she has a really beautiful grace and presence. It was fun to be around.
Awesome. To learn more about these and other stories, please visit psychedelicspotlight.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be well.